This is a video review of Module 3, Quiz Part A. I will review questions most missed by the class. Question 1, only 50% of the class chose the correct answer. You were directed to the stratum basale in the epidermis and asked what cells that exist here that are post-mitotic. Most of the cells, majority, are stem cells here, and they undergo mitosis, and one of them stays behind, and the daughter cell moves into the stratum spinosum and through the epidermis as keratinocytes. However, there are two cells that are located in this layer, and one of them is the melanocyte. It's post-mitotic, does not divide, and the Merkel cell, which is a sensory cell. If you want to learn more about the Merkel cell, you can go to slide 18, I think, in the integument lecture. Okay, question 2, you're presented with the epidermis again, and the third image here, you were directed to these cells pointed by the black arrows. And the question is, which is true about the cells? Well, there is a wax substance that's located between them and the stratum granulosum cells. When they first begin to differentiate at this stage, they produce a wax-like substance that's between the cells. It's certainly not Langerhans cells. They do not secrete melanin. They do not capture Langerhans antigens because that's the Langerhans cells' function, and they are definitely not stem cells. Question 6 was the next one. Question 6, you were presented a lymph node, and the question asked you to select the true statement about the location of the yellow triangle. Well, the yellow triangle is in the medulla. You see the medulla is lighter stain, and it has these darker strands of basophilic strands, and these are the medullary cords and the sinuses, medullary sinuses between them. And it is this location where antibodies can enter into the afferent lymphatic vessels that emerge from the medulla. And so that many people thought that the region is composed of a network of epithelial reticular cells. Now that is because of the confusion that the epithelial reticular cells are present in the thymus, not in the lymph node. And this is where old erythrocytes are removed in circulation. And that occurs in the spleen, not the lymph node. So it's very important that you recognize the key features of the organs now and for the rest of the course. Here is the cortex with the germinal centers in the lymphatic nodules in the cortex and the medulla. Best to now begin to focus on all those histological features and do not try to memorize images, but think about them. In other words, read the slide like you're reading a book, but it tells you a lot. Okay, question 7. You were presented with this is the cortex of the thymus, and your biggest clue here is the Hassel's corpuscle in the enlarged view. And the question asks a true or false statement. And it says that the organ presented here contains mostly naive and T lymphocytes, which is true, but also some B lymphocytes, and that is not true. B lymphocytes are coming directly from the bone marrow, and they go into the lymph node in the spleen, but not in the thymus. Okay, question 8. You're presented a lymph node here, and question 8, this is the cortex and medulla from lymph node, an enlargement of a portion of the cortex, a nodule, with the subcapsular sinus indicated here. And the question is, choose the true statement about the region, this organ, between these dotted lines. Well, the true statement, and unfortunately, most of the class missed the question, but there really isn't any excuse for that because If you will go to the integument lecture and study slide 17, you will see clearly that Langerhans cells can pass through this region. Now you might say, well, why I didn't see that in the lymphoid lecture. You must integrate information between the various lectures. The body is an integrated whole, and there are certain events that may occur in the skin, but they're related to the lymph node, and this is a classic example of that. Okay, question 11. You presented a structure. This structure encircled is an arteriole. You see the smooth muscle cells. It's very much dilated. It has red blood cells in it. And next to it is a small venule, almost at the level of a postcapillary venule. And this is a cross-section of a very tiny nerve fascicle here. Okay, so the question said, this structure conducts blood between which of the listed pairs? Well, if it's an arteriole, it's got to be a medium artery and a capillary. Blood flows from a medium or muscular artery through an arteriole into a capillary. So you have to know, first of all, recognize the structure and put together its relationship to its other structures, in this case, the vascular tree, and in what order these vessels are located. Okay, question 15. Question 15. Okay, this is a true-false statement. Capillaries in the stratum spinosum epidermis provide for gas exchange, nutrition to cells in the stratum granulosa. That's absolutely false. There are no capillaries anywhere in the epidermis. All the nutrition has to be diffusing from the capillaries in the dermis, and the closest ones to the epidermis are in the papillary layer of the dermis. So review the integument and the relationship between blood vessels and the epidermis. Question 18 is the next one. Question 18. Which is the dominant histological feature in the adventitia of a large vein like the vena cava? Well, that's without question the smooth muscle. And so if you missed that question, you need to review the features of all of the different vessels, histological features. And question 21 is the next one. The bulk of keratin is synthesized in which of the listed locations? Well, that is the stratum spinosum. It's actually the thickest layer. Those are the keratinocytes, and they're busy synthesizing keratin throughout. Some said stratum basale. All the cells in the stratum basale are either stem cells, Merkel cells, or melanocytes. And until a stem cell divides and gives rise to a keratinocyte, which is immediately in the stratum spinosum, that is when it begins to synthesize keratin. Okay, in the stratum corneum, all the keratin has been produced because these are simply cell bags of keratin with no organelles, no nucleus or anything. That's all gone. Okay. Okay, so question 22. Gas exchange and nutrition from melanocytes comes from blood circulating in capillaries located in which of the listed sites? Okay, again, dermis papillary layer. We just reviewed that in the previous question. So question 23. Melanocytes share melanin with surrounding cells by which of the listed methods? Well, that's cytokine. That's cell-to-cell secretion. Okay, and 26. In the open circulation concept of circulation blood within the spleen, blood goes directly from the central artery in which location? Well, it goes directly into the cord of Billroth. The closed circulation concept would tell you that it flows directly from the central artery into a sinusoid. Okay, question 20 or 30 is the next one. Where in the spleen do most of the T cells reside? Well, that's in the pals, the periarterial lymphatic sheath, PALS, all caps, is the acronym for this. They do not lie in the splenic cords or nodules, the cords of Billroth, or the sinusoids. So some need to review that. Okay, question 32. Where an antigen that gains entry into the bloodstream would most likely be detected and responded to in which of the locations? Now, some said the germinal center of a lymph node. Remember that the lymph node only responds to antigens in the lymph. All throughout your body, in the papillary layer and the reticular layer of the dermis, you have lymphatic capillaries, and they could receive antigen from Langerhans cells, which will travel through there to the lymph node, but not the blood. And the thymus does not react to any antigens. In the medullary cord and the lymph node, that's where you actually have B cell transformation of plasma cells that produce antibodies that go into the efferent lymph nodes, and the trabecular spleen are all connective tissue. So the only possible correct answer is the marginal zone of the spleen, and that is the marginal zone around the PALS and also the nodules. Okay, question 33, the last one that we're going to review is choose all that were included in the histological structure of the blood-thymus barrier. Everyone picked, almost everyone, epithelial reticular cell, but the capillary basal lamina, the capillary endothelium, and a macrophage are all contributed to the blood-thymus barrier. Okay, so that concludes the review of the Module 3 quiz part A.